Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for tapping into this live interview right now. I'm Matt Palacio for Media Maya, and we're going to be joined with Malachi Symonds. Now, Malachi has been the newly appointed candidate for constituency 15 for the One Bermuda Alliance. We would have received this news about 2 days ago, as you saw the transition that happened in all around in Bermuda coming through the news. Now, a lot of people might know Malachi as just a farmer as well. He is very well known for agriculture in Bermuda. And just a recap of just who he is a bit, we're going to go through a quick little bio before we bring Malachi in. So again, thank you everyone for joining me right now for this conversation, the first conversation with Malachi Symonds, as he is the newly appointed candidate for the One Bermuda Alliance. So starting off with an intro of just who Malachi is a tad bit before we actually get to know him a little bit more. So Malachi developed a passion for the environment during his years at Walk Academy, dedicated, who pursued studies in India. And after graduating in 2012, he returned to Bermuda with a wealth of knowledge and a strong passion for environmental conservation. Now, he then resumed his academic pursuits by enrolling at Earth University in Costa Rica. His dedication culminated in his graduation in 2019 with a BSc in Agricultural Sciences, earning him with the title of Agricultural Engineer. Now, upon returning to Bermuda, Malachi brought with him a vision to invest in the country and advocate for food security, sustainable living, green energies, and a reduced cost of living, which is quite a topic we talk about quite often in Bermuda. Now, in 2020, he laid the groundwork for his initiatives and officially launched his enterprise, Just a Farmer, in 2021. So throughout this conversation, please feel free to send in any questions that anyone has. Good evening. I see Toretto's in the building, and she is here to listen in and tap in for herself and also for Bermuda Youth Connect. If you don't already know the organization, please follow them as well, Bermuda Youth Connect. Again, feel free to ask any questions in the comments as we go along this discussion and have this live first exclusive with Malachi Symonds. Now, further ado, let's bring in the man of the hour. Hello, hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
I'm glad you're feeling fine. Now, early before we even started this, you said you were a little bit nervous to come on today.
Yeah, I definitely have been nervous. I mean, I feel like I've been out of my field now for probably 2 weeks, stepping into the office. So I've been out of my comfort zone for 2 weeks, and I guess politics is also out of my comfort zone, you know? So I'm a little nervous, I am, but I'm doing all right.
Well, let's start out with that actually. So I wanted to brush in just a little bit with saying, like, I think a lot of people know you for some things that we've heard recently in the news when it came to your farm and your land and having disputes with the ministry about it and trying to get things sorted and deciding to kind of like, with all this red tape, it wasn't necessarily worth it. But outside of that, how about you tell us right now, just who is Malachi Symonds and the man that you describe yourself to be?
Ooh, um, Malachi Symonds is a Bermudian, um, somebody that grew up in Kroll, spent most of his time fishing and hanging out with friends. Um, Ran away to school, got connected in India to the nature, spent his time hiking on the weekends. It was an amazing experience, India. I didn't get the grades that I wanted to get, I'll be quite honest with you, but it was definitely a life-changing experience. I came back. I was a little more timid to travel because of my experiences in India and being out there by myself. And then Costa Rica. Costa Rica definitely gave me a different view. It was a lifestyle change more than anything. It's about sustainability. So I was out there for 4 years studying, 4.5. And in the fourth year is when I actually grasped the idea of recycling. So it was a lifestyle shift. It wasn't something that just happened overnight. Um, and then, of course, I came back to Bermuda, and I've been trying to get this cultural change going and, trying my best to come back and invest in my country because that's why I left to go to Costa Rica. The idea was to come back and invest here in agriculture and sustainability and just environment as a whole, to keep things going for the future generations. So I guess that's me in a nutshell.
Amazing. Now I am getting some comments, and I apologize, we're not live on Instagram. There must be an issue with streaming out there. So it's just live on YouTube. So if you're tapping into this conversation, please just send out the YouTube link so everyone can tap in through YouTube because the Instagram live is not currently working. I apologize for that, everyone that's tapped in right now. But please feel free to share this conversation so that others can also jump in and ask questions as well throughout this discussion. All right. So Malachi, let's talk about the fact that maybe politics wasn't in your rearview mirror. So how did you become a candidate with the OBA? Did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? What happened?
So what happened? when I first started my farm, I didn't know that producing food or food production would be so political. Um, I didn't think it would have as much red tape as it did. And as I started to have more and more issues, I started to think that maybe I needed to get into politics. It's not something that I wanted to do, truthfully. I know we all have this idea of politicians being two-faced and dirty, you know. I mean, at least I have that idea. Let me not say everybody. That's my point of view. That's how I've kind of wanted to stay away from it because I never wanted to be associated with that. So I don't exactly call myself a politician. I call myself a politivist. But yeah, I got into it because after trying to go through the right channels as such, like I was on the board of agriculture and I couldn't make any movement. I was talking to the minister and I couldn't make any movement. And it just seemed to keep pushing me backwards. You know, everything I did seemed to push me 5 or 6 steps behind. Um, and then I went, well, no, let me not say that. I went in and spoke to Cole Symonds, the old OBA head, and basically sat down with him and said, listen, I'm thinking about starting a party. But before I do, because I know that that's a whole lot more work, and I think it's going to involve a lot of managing of people, like people managing, I want to know what you guys have to offer. You know, I want to know what you guys plan to do, and what it is that you believe in. And he sat down with me and we spoke for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then when Jarian stepped into place, I went and I spoke to him as well, because if he's going to be the face of a party that I am going to potentially promote and they're going to potentially promote me, which we are now here, I wanted to know who was the head and what they were about and what they wanted to do. And everything he said kind of resonated. You know, he's a new opposition leader, and I think that he can do a lot. So I joined up, and while I was in Dubai in COP28, I actually had the opportunity to meet activists and listen to what they were going through and hear about, you know, the politicians in their country and how they wouldn't allow them to get to COP28, and, you know, the positive and negative about that. And I decided that the only real option, because most of the activists were broke, they were over there on stipends or scholarships or somebody sponsored them. The only real option I had to actually push myself forward as a person and also make the change that I want to do would be, or want to make the positive change, would be to get into politics. And that's, you know, the decision was made when I came back.
So just clarify this for me, was joining politics and joining the OBA the only step forward that you saw? Did independence, like joining some way independently, come to mind, or even the Progressive Labour Party, was that even a thought?
The independent was definitely a thought. I thought about running independently, but as an independent, you sit in like a backbench. You can't be promoted in as a minister. You can't make as much policy change as you would like to, because you don't have the support of the others in the room. Um, Progressive Labour Party, family ties, they're very strong. Um, I've always stood on my own, so I couldn't just sign up for the Progressive Labour Party, especially since I felt as though they didn't support anything that I was pushing forward, you know. I was actually timid to run for the OBA because I felt as though they'd pull my lease to the farm, or, you know, I wasn't sure. So that's one of the reasons why I also started to wind up things at the farm, because I felt as though I was vulnerable having a lease to government land, you know.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit of maybe the correlation between the OBA and yourself and what you plan to do now that you're tied with them?
Um, I think the OBA is listening. You know, I feel as though I've sat in the caucus room for a little while now, and every time they bring up a matter, I'm able to give them my opinion, and it's a different opinion. You know, there's not many. I'm not sure. I would say I feel as though there aren't farmers on the board of anywhere else in Bermuda. You know, and I feel like somebody who has a background in sustainability and waste management is, you know, not very seen in a political realm. So when I give my point of view, it's normally taken well, you know. Um, and I feel as though I'm trying to get into a position where I can work on waste management. I can work on sustainability. I can work on food security and lowering the cost of living through that. So that's what I'm trying to promote. And, kind of have the party, because, everybody says the party's going to use you. And, and if obviously to an extent the party needs me, and to an extent I need the party. So it's going to be a give and take there, because I'm trying to make the change, and I think the party is willing to do that. That's what they want to do. They want to make the change.
Okay, so double back a little bit, just talking about, your choice with the OBA. I, for one, when I saw the release of the news come out that you are a candidate for the One Bermuda Alliance, was shocked, only because I thought that, your plans was to leave Bermuda and actually go to Costa Rica. So to see that come out, I'm sure you probably got a lot of messages. What was the feedback like when that came out, and what do people say to you when they realize that this is what you're doing?
So a lot of people were shocked as well. I definitely did plan on leaving. There was never a time frame to it, because I do have property over there. I do have a daughter over there. And it's definitely somewhere that I hold dear. But I'd like it to be an option. I'd like it to be like, I've decided to go, not because Bermuda's in dire states and nobody can live here, but because, I've decided that I want to go to Costa Rica to invest and grow myself as a person over there. The comments I got were very mixed. Some people were like, well, isn't he leaving to go to Costa Rica? This must be just a play for, power. It's all, he's been working with the.
Oh, okay. I'm assuming that Malachi has a little bit of Wi-Fi connection. Okay, you're back.
Sorry
That's
about that.
that's okay. Go on. You were saying people thought that this was just a plane that you're supposed to go to Costa Rica.
Yeah, people thought it was a power play. Some people said it was just a power play to get into, more attention from people, but none of that is true. I just didn't have a time frame on leaving. Obviously, I couldn't leave with no money. I closed down the farm, and that was my source of income. So, I have to build up some cash first. I'm working in a family business, and I don't want to just leave Bermuda. I want Bermuda to be successful. I want my home to flourish, and I want to feel as though I did what I went away to study to do.
Okay. So obviously it was well known across the island that for yourself, and during the whole dispute with the current ministry about, you trying to grow the sorry, it was a chicken coop and other solar panels and things on your garden, and it didn't come to fruition, even though you called it a passion project yourself. But how did that, I guess I could call it, dispute may have influenced your political career?
Um, I definitely think that it was a push to get into it, because truthfully, I thought I could come back and influence everybody just through, you know, being or doing what I enjoy, which I did, but I kept finding red tape. I could influence people, but I wasn't able to make any headway for myself, you know? So that really helped to push me into politics, because I feel as though the only way that we're going to have a change is if the policies change. I mean, one of the things that I was dealing with was, 70-year-old policy. And 70-year-old policy means that it's still around from monopoly law. It's still around from, you know, racist and segregation. Like, that type of policy needs to be changed, and it hasn't yet. So that's really what pushed me into deciding that the only way to make the change that I really would like to make for Bermuda, for my country, is to get into politics.
Interesting. I feel like a lot of us talk about, well, by that I mean like on the team at the Daily Hour, we talk about like the old laws on the show. I've done
Mhm.
series about like laws that are still in effect that, are displacement to the Black people in Bermuda as well. We got a question that came through from Amber. So let's bring it up on the screen here. It says, what are you most excited about with your new role?
Um, to be quite honest, I haven't really decided. It's a new space. Like, I'm excited to get into it. I'm excited to meet the constituents. I'm excited because it's an uphill battle. I know that that's a PLP stronghold, and I chose it myself. And I believe that if I'm able to change the hearts of the constituents, then I should be able to change the island the way that I think it needs to go. So I'm excited for that.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Constituency 15, and you answered one of my questions there. So you picked it yourself. But let's look at some of the stats. You know that the deputy premier is currently sitting in that spot, and he's got. I looked back for the last 4 elections, so everyone you can see there on the screen just how long he's had this seat. Just by the last four, it's all I looked backwards was four. But yeah, so it's very consistent, very strong wins for the deputy premier in that seat. As you said, it's a PRP stronghold seat. So I mean, realistically, how do you plan to win that seat?
Um, Realistically, I plan to go out and I plan to knock on doors and just meet people. Um, I think that that constituency can be better represented. I know that it used to be headed by Ottawa Symonds, and from everything I've heard, unfortunately, I wasn't able to meet him. He was an exceptional gentleman, and I think that they can be better represented nowadays. I did get to meet a few people, and they said that they haven't had anybody come around and canvass in years. So I'm looking to go out and canvass. I'm looking to be positive in that neighborhood and do what I can to improve it. Um, yeah, I just want to get out and meet people. That's part of the reason why I opened the farm.
So why did you pick constituency 15 if it was your choice?
What do you mean? Well, I mean,
You said that you picked constituency 15 to run in.
mhm. Yeah,
Why?
because I believe that they need better representation, one. And I also believe that if I can win the hearts of those people in that constituency, it means that I can change the island the way I believe it needs to be changed. Because it's an uphill battle, whether I'm running for a constituency or trying to make policy change in government. I have to be able to get my point across to people, whether they are in opposition or whether they are on my side. They have to believe in the movement of being sustainable and the fact that going sustainable will reduce the cost of living and will drive us into the Bermuda that we need to be in. And we're in at one point.
Okay. Now, I feel like because as we can see from those statistics of the wins that the deputy premier has in that seat, I mean that's quite a it's a big ask to say
Mhm.
that, you say that people there say they haven't heard from anyone in years, yet he's winning by such a large margin.
Mhm.
So realistically, sometimes we can actually say right now that the older population is still the swaying voters in Bermuda, and the younger population hasn't really caught up there yet in like matching the amount of votes. So obviously, the older lot are still swaying the voting on the island.
Yeah.
So how do you plan to grasp their interests? Because sustainable practices and things seem to be talked about a lot for the younger generation, but the older lot, I mean, how are you going to reach them in a way that you think that they're going to want to vote for Malachi Symonds?
Um, so I think that a lot of the older crowd normally are swayed by children. So their children. So for example, I know that we do a lot of teaching as a community to kids, and the kids go home and say, "No, mommy or daddy, that has to go into the green bin because that's recyclable, or that has to go into the red bin because you can't do anything with that." And the parents start to catch on, and that doesn't stop. As long as you're living in the household with your family, that that type of sway happens. It doesn't matter the age that you are. At least that's how I perceived it. And then, of course, just hearing that, for example, they've said that the OBA has never come around the canvas. So if the OBA hasn't gone around the canvas and the PLP has never gone around the canvas and the stats have remained the same because nobody's canvassed, it means that if somebody ran around and canvassed, there's a possibility that the stats change. So I'm kind of riding on that, just going out and, having conversations. Like, I feel like that's a big, a statement in itself. And I'm going to do what I can for that community. I am a farmer, and farmers generally work day and night for the people. They produce food for their community. So I'm going to do what I can, just like I would have if I was on that farm, for the community, for that constituency.
All right. So I have a question that just came in from Sinead Smith, so I'm going to bring it up so you can answer it. The question is, how do you plan to ensure transparency and accountability in your role, i.e. corruption is something that is correlated with politicians. How will you avoid that corruption?
Um, so I think that's something that I thought about a lot. One thing that I'm doing is I am working for my family company. So I'm not dependent on government pay. I feel like somebody raised it in one of the town hall meetings, and I feel like it's very true. When you're dependent on pay, you kind of muzzle yourself because you don't want to be kicked out of your position. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is keep my job and be as transparent within the party as possible. Um, on my own terms, I really, if I do win and I become a minister, I'd love people to continue calling me farmer. Like, I am not better than anybody else because I have a ministerial position. I'm a person just like everybody else on the island, and I'm trying to live and make the island better. I expect all my peers to keep me grounded. I know, well, I've seen that a lot of these guys get into position and then the ego becomes something that almost explodes. So I'd love for people to keep me grounded and tell me when I've done wrong. And I'd love for people to tell me when I've done right. That is a part of who we are. I'm not perfect. I'm a human just like everybody else. And I'm going to make mistakes, and I'll own my mistakes. Not a problem at all. So I want people to embrace me on that.
All right. I'm sure a lot of people in the comments are loving to hear that. Cassine just dropped in and they said, from dirt to doorsteps, we love your platform of sustainability. You are such a wonderful example of being excellence, humble, and awesome. So that's coming from Cassine. We did get a question from Charles Jefferson II, although it was answered a little bit in the beginning, but we can go through it again since people are just tapping in. Did Malachi look at joining both parties, or was he only approached by the OBA? I guess you could re-answer that question for us, Malachi.
So no, I wasn't approached by the OBA. I actually went to them. I do come from a PLP background, and I did have some interaction with the PLP. Some of the things that they showed to me, I didn't really enjoy or resonate with. So I did look at the OBA, and I also looked at running independently. I did get invited to a PLP Youth Wing meeting, and I attended. I did let the person who invited me know that I was with the OBA, and I thought it was positive. The Youth Wing meetings are definitely positive because they're getting young people involved in politics, but it always tied back to the party. And at this point in time, I don't think the PLP is pushing anything or listening to the people. I don't think they're pushing people politics, they're pushing party politics.
All right, thank you for that reiteration. Again, for everyone's tapping in right now, please feel free to drop in some questions. We'll answer your questions here. Malachi will do his best to answer all your questions, and also just rewatch from the beginning as we covered some of these questions as well, so you get a full in-depth perspective of what Malachi actually already said. So moving on to a little bit just about the fact that there might be a general election either this year or next year, because again, the Premier can call any general election at any time during the life of Parliament, which is 5 years, and the last one was 2020. So it's coming close and everyone feels that there's going to be an election coming soon. So with that being said, let's say, you are running for constituency 15. Does you winning or losing, affect whether or not you stay in Bermuda longer or move to Costa Rica?
That's a good question. I think if I win, I definitely stick around a lot longer, because I feel as though I'd be a part of driving that change, and I want to see the change. I think one of the biggest issues we have in Bermuda, and I've heard it from a lot of the older generation, is, hey, just take your time, it'll all happen. Just relax, things will happen in its time. And truthfully, we don't have a lot of time. Like, the older generation has I want to say the ability to say that because they have houses, most of them are paid off, most of them are living comfortably. But people in our generation are trying to get housing, trying to survive, trying to get jobs, working, 3, 4, 5 jobs to make ends meet and move out of the house and, become independent. So truthfully, yeah, it does, I guess, having, somewhat of a weight on whether I leave early or later. I've given myself as a person 5 years. So I'd like to be out there. If nothing works out here in politics or in anything else, in 5 years, I don't see myself here longer than that if things don't start to change.
And what are some changes that you yourself are hoping to implement?
I would like to solve the water issue, the fact that we've polluted our water table. I'd like to solve the energy issue where we are increasing the cost of energy, waste management, cost of food, cost of utilities. I guess in general, I'd say just the cost of living. I feel like what I studied allows me to make an influence on the cost of living. Yeah.
Let me ask, because of your background, obviously in agriculture engineering and obviously sustainability, the light bulb initiative that was recently put up by the government, what is your overall opinion about that? And do you think that it was beneficial in any way, actually saved money in any way? What are your thoughts?
I think that the light bulb initiative was a band-aid solution, you know. I think that it was a way to entice people to, say, hey, we're going to help you save energy. But at the end of the day, we're still burning fossil fuels to create that energy. And it didn't really decrease the cost of energy because a couple months later, they then increased our energy prices. So it just seemed like another one of those band-aid solutions. I don't think it was positive because we imported a whole lot of bulbs. We gave out a whole lot of bulbs on the taxpayers' money, which is our money. So at the end of the day, you bought your own bulbs. It's not like somebody bought them for you. We bought our own bulbs, whether you accepted them or not.
That's true, taxpayers' dollars. So let's talk a little bit about what SNE actually brought up, which was accountability and just like transparency and things like that. So, Malachi, you're 29, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. And now we're kind of seeing this flow because Sophia Tessitore, she also joined the OBA. She's much younger, and we're starting to kind of see a wave of younger hopefuls actually joining the OBA. Can you confirm if that's the goal of the party right now, is to just try to get as many young people on the island in on this side, or are they looking for people with certain initiatives? What's the goal there?
I think the party isn't looking for anybody. I think what's been happening is that, and this is my experience, I'll give you what I felt. I felt as though the PLP was very rigid, and the PLP is one of those cultural things or cultural entities where you have to age out and then you have to age in. So I'm 29 right now. I joined the PLP and I get indoctrinated. And in 15 years' time, after all the ministers that are above me or potential ministers that are above me age out, I then have the opportunity to become a minister. And that for me doesn't resonate with the change that I'd like to make. So I don't think the OBA is looking for people because they didn't come out and poach me. I went and knocked on a door and said, hey, what are you guys about? Because I didn't resonate with what the PLP is currently doing. And I think that's happening with more younger people. There are people that are indoctrinated from family, and even speaking to them, when I ask them why they're with the PLP, they just say, oh, it's because of family. And truthfully, my family was not happy with the fact that I decided to run with the OBA. The PLP does have a lot of historic ties. And my family, like many others, I'm sure, have felt it. People having their mortgages pulled, family members that were having tests done on them when they were on a surgical table. I got to meet the great Paulu, Roosevelt Brown. When I was younger, he came, taught me how to make rice. So my ties with the PLP go deep. But I think my ties to the PLP come from their initial movement, which was people-based. And right now, they don't seem like that. And the OBA, to me, very much seems people-based. From talking to the candidates and the the leader and everybody in the room, we just seem people-based. It doesn't seem like we're just party-based. And I think that's really what resonates with me. And I think that's what the younger people are feeling, or those who are joining. But no, they aren't poaching anybody. The people are coming and asking questions and wanting to find out what's going on.
Interesting. All right, thank you for that clarity too, on just like I guess how you feel about it, even with your family and the history there. So it must have been a kind of like a hard decision to actually go to OBA and actually have it announced to the island that way, let alone your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you a bit of a personal question, Malachi. For you yourself, what do you think is the difference between like being an activist and being a politician?
Um, so that's something that I thought about when I was in Dubai. I think an activist is somebody who's actively campaigning to change policy and social rights. That's somebody that's actively doing it. And everybody that I met, I won't say most people, I'll say the people that I encountered were studied in their fields, and they felt as though what they were campaigning to do would make the change. Now, politicians, and I'll only speak here in Bermuda, they don't seem to have any knowledge in the department or ministry that they actually get into. And I think that's the biggest difference. The activist is actively trying to make change through studies and backing that they've done themselves. And the politician is in a paid position to make those policy changes. So the activist normally is all passion driven, where the politician is very much so not, or at least that's how I've looked at it. And that's the reason why I call myself a politivist, which is the mix between a politician and an activist, because I'm actively trying to make change, which is the reason why I got into politics.
Okay, wow. That's a way to look at it, definitely. And I definitely agree on the activist position. Politicians, obviously, the people who have that power within government to change like legislature or try to push through it as well. So I guess that was kind of the shock value of people like seeing you go into politics, because I'm sure most people saw you as an activist, as you're out there protesting with the farmers and things of that nature. So like moving to politics, does it feel different already? Because it hasn't been long, but does it feel different? Do you feel different, and do people see you differently now?
It does feel a little different. I have spoken to a few people, and one of the persons that I spoke to is an ex-PLP minister. And what they said to me was most politicians get into politics because they have a passion and they want to make change. That was in, I guess, the early 2000s when she was running. Um, I don't know if it's like that now, but I don't feel a change. I'm actively, or I'm very excited to go out and meet people, and that's part of making a change, going out, hearing what people need, hearing people's concerns, giving them, the opportunity to meet me and see what I'm about. And yeah, I'm excited to get, I guess, I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to try and make that change. I'm excited because it's something that I went away to school to study. So I'm trying my absolute best to bring everything I learned back and get myself into a position, I should say, where I can make the change that I believe Bermuda needs. I think some people have seen me differently. My great aunt was like, "I'm mad at you." She's obviously very strong PLP, so I kind of had to go over there and ease things over before she kicked me out of the house. But it was positive.
All right. Now we got a comment here, but feel free to anyone, if you want to drop any questions to Malachi, please do so. We're still continuing this conversation here. I will throw this comment up. You can respond to it if you wish, Malachi. But basically, a person says the PLP know who their voting base is and will consistently play the historic race card because it triggers them to vote PLP. Any comments to that?
I do agree with you. It's something that I've been trying to understand, and through talking to the elders, I think I've found a way to speak to everybody. Because, like I just said, I went and spoke to my great aunt, and one of the things that I realized was that she is tied to a movement, and that movement happened probably the late 90s, early 2000s. And there is no movement right now. There's no, like the PLP, and in, my words, I guess, have kind of become more of a dictatorship, like what they were trying to fight against, which is the UBP, which is what they always fought against, and that's the continuous thing they use. They've become just the fact that I was afraid to speak up because I thought they would take my lease. That's similar to my family having their mortgages pulled. So they've become the beast that they have been fighting against. And unfortunately, those people who are still tied to the movement are not able to see that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, that movement or what maybe we hope to become of it, because tomorrow is going to be the budget day. Tomorrow, the premier and the governor will say the budget, and that's kind of what everyone's going to be tapped into very early in the morning. It's going to be at 10 a.m. for anyone tapped in right now that wants to know. You could view it on the CITV government Facebook page as well at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. The budget will be laid out. So what do you hope will actually be included in that budget tomorrow, Malachi?
I have no expectations, truthfully. I had the opportunity to work in one of the government departments as a consultant, and I got to understand how things actually worked. And I realized that the narrative is pushed not by the workers of government, but by the ministers as such. And I'm not hopeful, I'm not hopeful that they're going to do anything that is for the people, like if I had the opportunity, I would push for the betterment of Marsh Folly. I'd push for the waste management, everybody having a trash can so they can separate the waste and do it properly, because that would knock down the idea of having to invest $15 million in Tynes Bay every couple of years because we're using Tynes Bay correctly. Investing in biogas so that we don't have to continuously bring in and buy our gas. That would drop utilities, and that would decrease the cost of living. So I don't have too much hope, to be quite honest with you, in this budget. I'd be excited if something came back that was positive, and I'd be more excited to see if they actually implemented it, because I feel like we got a lot of talk and then we don't get any real implementation. And that's the thing that I'd love to do. Just I'm an activist, so I'm always doing something. So I'm hoping they do implement.
Right. Well, a lot of the conversations we've been hearing recently is basically trying to keep Bermudians in Bermuda, or even trying to bring Bermudians back. That has been like a forever topic that keeps growing. Now, you yourself, you're still planning to leave in some capacity somewhere down the line to Costa Rica. Now, what would keep you here? I mean, other than the potential of maybe winning in the next general election, other than that, what would keep you, or what would you think keep other Bermudians in Bermuda, especially the young ones who, like myself, have gone away as well?
I think that for me personally, what would keep me here is the opportunity to make the change that I want. And I think I speak for many of us, and I can be corrected. I'd love people to correct me if I'm wrong, that we all want an opportunity. And unfortunately, from my point of view, the government isn't promoting businesses in Bermuda. So you either get into an exempt company or a business that's already grown and huge, or you get into government. And if you get into government, you work your way up, like I was talking about. And there's not a lot of opportunity. There's not a lot of people giving young people chances. And I've heard a lot of people literally say that a lot of my age and younger just want the opportunity to show that they're capable. There's a lot of distrust between the seasoned people and the younger people. And that distrust kind of leads to what we see right now. People leaving, people getting into mischievous things that they shouldn't be. And I think that that's really the biggest thing, just being able to have an opportunity. If you had an opportunity where people actually believed in you and wanted to see you succeed, you probably would stick around, because most people have their families here. Leaving the island is a gamble.
Now, I will say this, and if anyone's in the audience that can correct me, but I know that the Department of Workforce and Development, they recently just had their graduates graduate for their 10-week course. I think it was possibly maybe 10 graduates, and I got to actually share one of the stories on the Daily Hour in the news break. I believe her name was Miss Mullen, and she, went away to school and she got studied for forensic sciences, I believe it was, to be in that police development, but she couldn't even get in because of the fact that she didn't have that on-hands training when she was in university because of the pandemic. Then when she came back home, they didn't have that here to supply it for her, and there was like this whole circle for her of trying to actually get partnered even with the Bermuda Police Service for her career development. Now, she obviously was able to get it, which is grateful, and it worked out with that program. But again, it's just another lot of steps that have to be taken when she already has a degree and she should already be qualified. It's just this little thing that's missing that isn't here in Bermuda. Now, what do you think? Well, I guess programs like that and that initiative per se on the island, do you think that is helpful with our, well-educated people that come back to Bermuda? Do we need more of those things? Is something else should be put in place? Like, what do you think about the program?
To be quite honest with you, I have been doing a lot of moving, so I haven't exactly read into the program. But from what you've said, um, I think the program could be positive. But again, I look at it like this. My family made a sacrifice, and I'll speak for myself. My family sacrificed, I made a sacrifice, and I got some scholarships as well. And I'm sure, giving money to scholarships is also a sacrifice. So you make the sacrifice, you get good grades, you study, you leave your family, they leave you, you come back home, and you say, you know what, I want to do something positive in Bermuda. And when you get here, you are trying to hit the ground running, because if you haven't taken out a loan, then you have people that have invested in you that are looking at you to do positive things. And you want to do positive things because you've done everything you did in school, and you come back with this energy to do it. And then you hit this, you can't do it because you have to do this first, or you can't do it because, you just can't do it. It's another deterring factor for young people, I think. I think that that type of program should be given to people who don't have the opportunity to leave, or don't have the, they don't want to leave. That type of program could work for somebody who doesn't have the means or the drive, I guess, to leave the island, or the opportunity to. But for somebody who's already done all of the work and is coming back to help her country, literally, and add to the workforce, that shouldn't be. That type of policy needs to be changed, from my point of view.
Okay. All right. Got some comments as well that came in, so I'll bring them up on the screen. Again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them in. We'll be ending the live shortly, so please, if any questions come in, let us know so Malachi can get to them before we close out this live today. So we got a comment here from Kenton Trott that says, I enjoyed listening to Malachi share his story as just a farmer, and now I am interested in his journey as a politician. He seems to be very humble, educated, knowledgeable, and experienced. His heart appears to be in the right place, and I wish him all the best. That's from Kenton Trott. And then
Thank you.
coming in from another report, Silas Lynch says, they've become oppressed. This is about the earlier statement about the PLP. They say they've become oppressed to their own people. They once were the people, but once they started to make money, they would never make it private sector. So they need to remain in the power to keep their salary. That's a comment there. All right. So moving on to some other questions here that I have for you, Malachi. I guess in the next 5 years, would you hope to see Bermuda in a space if, let's say, you do get elected in the next general election?
Yeah, I'd love to see Bermuda better itself, us as people better Bermuda, because at the end of the day, we are the government. And I think that's something that we need to bring back. We keep calling minister and this and that and the other as a third party, and we make them seem as though they aren't the people, but we are the people. And if the people are hungry, or the people aren't surviving, or the people are leaving, then we all feel that. So I'd love to see Bermuda change. I'd love to see tourism come back. And I feel like one of the best ways to do that is by lowering the cost of living, lowering that, because you'd have more students coming to Bermuda. Everybody thinks of Bermuda Triangle, and then they try to come here and they're renting or trying to get a hotel for outrageous prices. And it's not that it's outrageous to Bermuda, because that's the only way people can live, but it's outrageous to the rest of the world. When an Airbnb in Costa Rica, for example, is $50 or $25. I think the lowest I've gotten one, which was okay, was $35 or $25. Like, we can compete, but we have to compete on an international level. And right now, the only people we can really bring to Bermuda and enjoy are the millionaires, people that can actually come here and enjoy it, or business people. And it's a small niche market for that, I think.
Do you think that Bermuda should be looking to revamp its tourism sector then? Because that's always been our kind of our line way, is for that upper class.
I think that Bermuda needs to go through stepping stones. I think that there is $60 million in food industry and we import $60 million. So if you took $60 million and you looked at the salaries in Bermuda, and you could basically pay per month, if everybody got paid, let's say $5,000 a month, you could basically pay 30,000 people. I think that's the right math. I think for a month, each month, if we simply made that a circular economy. Like, there are things that we can hone in on our own as an island without importing people or importing knowledge or bringing in foreign consultants. Like, we can make ourselves more sustainable and more attractive to the world from within. And I think that's something that I'm trying to actively push. Like, we don't have to be importing all our knowledge or importing these large companies to give us the means, because at the end of the day, they're looking for a turnover all the time. So if we can empower our people and we can empower our island, then we can start to empower tourism and empower the markets that actually make and bring more money to our island.
I mean, that's all great in like sense, and I have heard that before. A lot of people are talking about the fact that with the foreign consultants and the amount of money that does go to them, and how we should try to focus more on like what we have on island to be able to like get those answers from as well. But realistically, just focusing on one thing for the island, and we talk about the whole, we want Bermuda to be more sustainable. Cost of living is really insane here. So how do you, Malachi Symonds, believe that Bermuda could actually reduce cost of living? One idea that you want to really focus on and push that you really think is going to make that shift that we need?
Um, one thing. I think that waste management done in the correct way will change the cost of living. Why do I say that? Right now, it'll affect, it'll affect, I'll focus on two of the industries that, or utilities that affect the basic basket in Bermuda. Um, One would be food. So if we made compost, then we could potentially sell or give compost to the farmers. So they no longer have to import their fertilizer. That's one, which means the cost of food could go down, the cost of production would decrease, and they could potentially, on their own, increase their farming sizes. Like, they could increase what they're farming, which means there'd be more food availability. And the 3% market, I think it is, that we currently hold as farmers could grow, which means we could reduce the cost of food a little bit. And obviously, with time, that would grow. Now, the waste management side of things would also allow us to take waste and turn it into biogas. Biogas is methane, it's a one carbon chain. And that, if you remember, was what Belco had installed. That machine that Belco had installed was meant for natural gas or methane gas. So we could potentially sell gas to Belco. And that means that if we sell it at the right price, then potentially we will control the narrative. We then take back control of our power and our food. So we have more control as an island of our utilities and the cost of utilities.
Okay, I do recall. I think this is a bit of the conversation I had with the lot of you guys that came from COP28, just about that specific gas as well, if I'm correct.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a question that just came in from Ms. Toll, so let's read a secret answer here. She asks, can you share more about the OBA's plan and vision? A lot's been said about why the PLP is a no, which is understandable, but can I hear more about why OBA is a yes? So I guess the first question you could answer in a second. So first being, can you share more about the OBA's plan and vision? And then second, why the OBA is a yes?
So I'll share the plan. The plan basically is to go back to the basics, which is one of the reasons why I resonate, to make things easier for people. So removing some of that red tape, because most of us know that the the red tape, Bermuda is over regulated, and supporting the people. That's the plan in a nutshell. I am focused on what I would like to do more than anything. So that's the plan in a nutshell. And in that fits what I am trying to push for the people. And why was the OBA a yes? Or why was it a yes for me? Because I felt heard. I felt that they were genuine. that they wanted to do or want to do for the people. And by having conversation with them over time, because it didn't happen overnight, this is probably like, I've been in there, sitting there probably for about 8 to 9 months or so. I decided that they were genuine, and everybody in the room, and they're not all white, I'll be quite honest with you. Most of them are mixed race or black. They want to do something positive for their people, for Bermuda. So that's the reason why I've chosen the OBA. And that's the reason why I believe the youth of Bermuda should choose the OBA, because at the end of the day, we all want an opportunity to show that we can make the change and be positive in Bermuda. And the constant culture of, when I age out, you have an opportunity, isn't working. And nowadays, because people aren't able to live on their pension, that continues even in the private sector. The older generation has to work because they can't live. And it leaves less jobs and less opportunity for the younger generation.
All right, Michael, I think that's a great way for us to finish off. But is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you want to mention to anyone who might be watching right now?
I would like everybody to hold me accountable. I expect my peers and my family and everybody else to not only hold me accountable for mistakes, but also for the positive. I am a farmer. I'm an agriculture engineer, and I like to be grounded. I told Maya in the beginning, well, before we spoke, that I had to go to the farm and find myself grounded because I was so nervous. I am out of my comfort zone a little bit. But I look forward to doing positive in Bermuda and helping to make the change. And I hope that I do have the support of the people. And yeah.
And how could the folks in constituency 15 or even just around the island actually reach you and communicate with you?
You can reach out to me on Instagram, Malachi Symonds. You can reach out to me just my number, 45922. That's the Just a Farmer line. Or you can send me an email at just@farmer.pm. Reach out, give me your points of views, whether they're negative or positive. I'm open to hearing it all. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Malachi, for stopping in and speaking to me for your first chat after being appointed as the candidate for the OBA Constituency 15.
Thank you, Maya. It was a pleasure. I definitely was honored that you reached out to me and wanted to do this with me. So thank you.
No problem. We had many chats prior to, like, even before this, so it was a shock to the island, and now we get to know a little bit more about the journey that you're going to take now that you're a politician.
Politivist.
Politivist.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malachi. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with me and asking the question that you asked. Again, Malachi gave you the information for you guys to reach out to him if you have any questions. And they're on. He's definitely going to have a lot more interviews coming through the next week or so, as he is a newly elected candidate for the OBA in constituency 15. So you're sure to hear more from him on the matter. Now, tomorrow at 10 a.m., don't forget, there is the budget that's going to be announced by the Premier, David Burt. And you could definitely watch that and follow it on CITV Bermuda on YouTube, or go into the government's Facebook page as well to check out what the Premier is going to say, as well as the governor, I believe, is sure to be there too to give some insight on Bermuda's next budget. Thank you once again for everyone that tapped in today and asked questions, and really appreciate you showing up to be a part of this discussion. Have a great night.